Good. So I hope that helped after the lunch. It gave also some energy to the panel. So it's a big challenge. And I'm really happy that we have 4 very excellent experts with a different perspectives here on stage. I will shortly introduce them, describe a little bit how we plan to structure this panel discussion, and then we end it. So we have on the left Jean-Philippe Belières, JP, a Senior Technical Fellow for Fuels and Alternative Energy Systems at Boeing. Many thanks for making the long travel from Seattle here. JP has 20 years of experience in the aviation industry, holds several leadership positions in key industry forums, and he was also the principal investigator of the Boeing 2018 eco-demonstrator flight campaign, where 100% sustainable aviation fuel, so the blending component, was used. We have Mark Newstead. Mark Newstead is General Manager of JIG, the Joint Inspection Group, and later we will explain a little bit what JIG is doing. Mark has 40 years of experience in the oil industry, working with the aviation industry, 20 years directly involved with aviation business in several countries and regions worldwide. Mark joined JIG in 2018 and is continuing its development, so JIG's development and the support of worldwide adoption of its handling, of its aviation fuel handling operation standards and inspection program. So you already see why that will become important soon. We have Mathias Milling, Director of Aviation of the Danish industry. Matthias has a bit different background. So his background is on international business and politics. Mathias has been working with the transport and infrastructure for 10 years. In the past 5 years, aviation has been as a core of his career. Mathias worked as policy officer for the Danish Ministry of Transport, where he supported and advised various ministers on aviation policies. After that, he joined the Danish industry as Danish aviation, and you will explain later more about your activities. Then we have Pierluca Satriano, Head of Safety, Intelligence and Performance Department at EASA. Pierluca joined the agency in 2013. Prior to his position as head of department, which he took in 2024, he was managing several sections like safety information in the certification directorate, development operation in the resource support directorate, and rule-making process support in the rule-making directorate. So it's great to have you here on stage. So what we will do is we will have 3 rounds. The first one will be a deep dive into the introduction of the problem. So we developed the problem statement a little bit further with the perspectives of the 4 panelists. Then we have a more forward-looking discussion on what needs to be done. We don't want to leave you just with a problem description and then you leave and travel home. And then we give you 20 minutes to ask your questions. I already see 2 questions, so please continue submitting your questions. Good. I would say with that introduction, let's start into the panel discussion. And let's bring also a little bit more positive perspective. So JP, Boeing, together with other OEMs, you have more than 20 years of experience with so-called alternative fuels, just different than fossil-based jet fuels. What is your perspective? Is SAF safe as a technology? Can you give us a little bit of background what has been done so far?
Yeah, thank you, Bastian. First of all, yes, it is safe, provided that it meets the requirement, the specification requirement. And the commercial use, I mean, we have been using SAF like EFA since 2011, so I think it is a testament that it is safe. Yes, we have been working over 20 years already on this thematic. So the major OEM, I'll call them the major OEM, and I'm talking about Boeing, Airbus, Pratt & Whitney, GE, Rolls-Royce, Safran, and Honeywell. I see some questions, I'm trying to address the engine OEM question at the same time. Mm-hmm. So we have been working together, and one of the key, some of the key, I had actually to write some down because so many good things came out of this work. But some of the key achievement, one was of course the creation of ASTM D7566 for the synthetic fuel. And I'm glad I saw your slide. You made the difference between SAF and SATF. Because through the STM process, we are talking about synthetic fuel. STM does not qualify sustainable aviation fuel, but of course we are all promoting the use of SAF. So, and that's why actually Boeing was leading the effort on the FAA approval. Since the beginning, we were looking at sustainable aviation fuel. But so we have the creation of ASTM D7566 that was in 2009, a big step. And the beauty of this specification is when you meet the requirement of this specification, the fuel is reclassified as a D1655 fuel, which is a JD1. So you do not have to do any recertification work. So that was a key achievement. What came through this work as well is we created an OEM panel. And in my opinion, that's the single most important achievement of all this work, because Annex 1 went through the process, the approval process, that was the FT-SPK. And Sasol had to go through each individual OEM. And it was a tremendous amount of work and time and cost associated with this effort. So the major OEM I mentioned a little earlier, we got together and well, how can we help the industry to ensure the highest level of safety when approving new fuel? Because we are a very conservative industry. And so we created this panel to promote safety and to ensure that applicant will have an easier entry point and cheaper entry point through this approval process. We also created ASTM D4054, which is a guidance material for applicant. To engage with OEM, you need to generate some data for OEM to be able to evaluate whether it is safe to use on their airplane, because fuel is an operating limitation. And in this guidance material, not only you have the specification characteristic, when you look at the spec like DEF 1091 or D1655, it is a limited amount of characteristics that you look at jet fuel. So when you look at a proper evaluation, we look at what we call fit-for-purpose properties. And the reason we do that, we want to make sure that all our fuel systems and material are compatible with whatever we're going to approve. So D4054 was also a great achievement. And as I mentioned, Boeing was leading the approval of Annex 2 for FA. And so since 2008, we have been doing, in the 2008-2009 period, we have been doing a tremendous amount of demonstration flight, demo flight or test flight to ensure that all system and components were actually compatible with this fuel. And as you mentioned, in 2018, on a 777 freighter, we did many months of flying with 100% FA, so the blending component itself. Again, by the way, these flights were FA in all tank and all engine. So it was to show actually how safe it was and how confident we were in this demonstration. By the way, we use a 777 because the gauging system is a speed of sound, based on the speed of sound rather than capacitance. So that's why we didn't have any issue limitation. But anyway, it is safe.
Perfect. I think that's very good and very important news. So we want to create the intention of the topic. What we see, we have standards, we have processes, we have panels in place, experts looking deeply, flight demonstrations. Yeah. That's very good and that's very important. So we know it's safe. I want to also ask you the question, looking at this situation today, I described it a little bit. What do you see? What are new topics that are emerging, new challenges?
Well, new topic. So I know we are talking about SAF here, but so new topic. I was very interested, by the way. Thank you for the invitation to come here because the previous panels were very interesting to me. I think we have the same issue basically. So what we are seeing is loss of technical expertise within the industry in general, lack of training, lack of engagement sometimes. So that's an issue we are trying to address as well. But in terms of the SAF, so our industry never had any new fuel for a long time, and suddenly we have all this sustainable aviation fuel. So we are dealing with blending, which, as you mentioned, cause some major issues. And by the way, thank you to EASA to take a leadership role in this effort, because it is important to be proactive. I heard a lot of people saying safety, we need to be proactive, we need to think about what's coming. And so I think it's very good for EASA to take this leadership role. And it's aligned very well with what Boeing has been doing in terms of being proactive as well on the safety side. But yeah, another thing that is concerning is apparition of new standards, worldwide standard for SAF. And that's a little bit troubling to me because it is done without engagement of the OEM. One thing I didn't mention earlier, why did we create an ASTM standard? Because historically, we had two major standards in the world, were DEFTAN 91091 and ASTM D1655. Why did we choose to align to work through ASTM? Is because DEFTAN is a little different. It's an executive committee, a restraint. But ASTM is a consensus-based organization. So we had OEM involvement, and then we could open, we could submit the documentation to the ASTM membership. So we thought it was an additional layer of safety, of security, to reach out to the whole aviation industry. So when we see this new standards coming up, that's concerning because there is no OEM engagement, and like I mentioned, fuel is an operating limitation, so it's a little bit difficult troubling for OEM to look at this. And also another aspect of this is the people working in these thematics within the OEM are the same. So more specifications are coming up. It's slowing down the system because we have to be ensuring that these specifications are actually going to be okay and safe. So that's a problem for us. And so you are very well aware that we are trying to open up we are trying to collaborate, to improve the collaboration. But it's very difficult when you do that on a global basis. So work in progress.
Thank you very much, JP. So we see it's safe, but we see also the system is a little bit stressed. Let's move on to Mark. Mark, you're new to the audience, a joint inspection group. It's your first time attendance here. So I would like to ask you to tell you a little bit about what JIG is doing and how you ensure that fuel quality is kept during operations.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you for the welcome. It's been a very interesting session for me. I share many of JP's thoughts and questions, and the subjects that keep me awake at night have all been dealt with in this room. So my mental health has improved because I know that I'm not the only one with the problems. So yeah, so quickly, who is Joint Inspection Group, or JIG for short? In summary, we contribute to your safety every time all of you in this room catch a plane. So that's what we do. So who are we? We're a non-profit organization. We've been active for 50 years. We have approximately 180 members now who are members of JIG, and their annual membership fee funds the work that we do. And what we do is we write the operating standards for people who are handling aviation fuel. So we tell them how to handle it from the point of production all the way to the plane in a way that the fuel remains on spec. It's delivered to the aircraft on time. It's delivered without damaging the aircraft, without damaging people, and without damaging the environment. I think in summary, that's what we do. There's a few big country blocks that don't follow JIG. So you have North America, China, Russia, and India, but essentially the rest of the world follows JIG. So nearly half of the jet fuel put on board aircraft in this world are doing it following the standards that are written by my group. And those of you may know, our standards are approved, they're endorsed by EASA, and we're also listed on the ICAO 9977 document, which gives a best practice on operating standards to follow. Then the final piece of what we do, and this is where our name comes from, is that we also train people, employees from our members, to become JIG inspectors. And so we have a pool today, about 130 people who are employees of our members, who go around, they inspect facilities to make sure that the airport facilities are in fact following the JIG standards the way they should. So we have a continuous feedback loop where we write the standards and we find out through the inspection process where the weaknesses are. And that helps us then improve the standards or clarify them. And then the most tricky piece, I think I heard it somewhere else, is we remove from the standards things that are no longer needed. But people are quite conservative, and removing things, I agree, is a bit of a challenge. But that, in summary, is what JIG does.
Thank you, Mark. So I want to ask you also a similar question like before to JP. So we have outstanding safety records, but now we have a change process, a transition that is happening.
Yeah.
What do we see? What is different now with the arrival of SAF, SBC?
Right, yes. So there's a number of challenges that are coming. So I think it would help just really briefly. I'll tell you how our standards work. So JP told you how at a global level the specification for jet fuel is written to make sure the physical and chemical properties are fit for purpose for an aircraft. And then what we do is we then tell people how to handle the fuel so that between the point of production and the aircraft, it's not contaminated. And supply chains are quite complex. You saw a picture up there of jet fuel that can come from China and be used maybe at Copenhagen Airport. And so there's many different actors who are in the chain, And 20 years ago, when I first started on this, everybody in the chain was the same. So you had the same fuel suppliers, all companies were doing everything. So what you were doing, if I would take it into, let's say, an image that we can all imagine, you're running a relay race at school. So there's 4 of you in the race, and you have to get a baton from the start to the finish. So you all knew the rules, you all followed the same rules, you're all on the same team, and so you knew when you finished with the baton that you complied with everything and you'd won the race effectively. The challenge we have with fuel is that, unfortunately, there's not a fuel specification laboratory in each corner of the world. And so, even if you wanted to test the fuel just before it went on the plane, you can't. I think the airline CFOs would get quite upset when I told them, well, we can do it every time, but you would have to wait 24 hours. So you can't do it all the time. So where you are is you're in a system where, as long as everybody plays the same game, the person at the end, the person who's putting fuel on the plane, knows that the fuel is okay. But the closer you get to the aircraft, your capacity to check excuse me, whether it's on specification or not, in fact, goes down. So it's almost the opposite of everything that you do here. The closer you get to the plane, the more controls, the more sure you are. With fuel, unfortunately, the best controls are near the point of origin, where it's produced. And then you have a reducing number of controls as you go on, because you can't do anything else. So if I bring it back to the relay race, the first person knows that the baton is certified because it's given by the meeting organizer. The second person in the race knows it's certified because he saw the baton being given. By the time you're the third one running, you've maybe seen the previous exchange, so you think it's probably on spec. By the time you're the fourth runner in the race, it's going so fast you can't see the color anymore. And all you can see is, well, he's wearing the same uniform as me, and he's in my lane, and so it must be okay. And so you grab it and you run to the end. So that is how, I know it sounds scary to you, but that's effectively how jet fuel gets sort of checked all the way to the aircraft. And the system is effective because it works. There's very, very, very few problems with off-spec jet fuel on planes. I've known of a few, but normally due to other issues and not because the system has fallen down. So, sorry for the long intro, Bastian. I come to your question now. So what worries me now? So The same as what JP is saying is that the oil industry is changing. So the knowledge is leaving the industry. So the people with knowledge are getting smaller. Oil companies are also consolidating, which means that the supply chain no longer belongs to the same people. So when you're in your relay race again, it's no longer all people from your team, but you have paid substitutes who are getting in the way. So you start asking the question, well, are they following the same rules or not? And the arrival of sustainable aviation fuel, which is really, really important for the industry, has introduced a number of new actors into the system. So there's a lot of new actors who don't necessarily know the rules and who, in some cases, they see the rules around aviation fuel, the rules around the standards we write, they see it as a means of preventing them from competing. They see it as an inconvenience rather than something that keeps everything safe. And so this is what we're starting to see. And so if I come back to the relay race again, you have a new supplier who is making an SBC, so the synthetic blend component, and all of a sudden they join you on one bend. And they hand you a baton, and it's no longer metal, it's plastic, but it's the right color. And they say, well, this is jet fuel, you just have to trust me that it's the same. But you don't really know, have they followed all the rules, because it's a new person in the game. And then the final thing is you saw the mandates. The mandates are extremely ambitious in terms of what the industry's capability is really to make the fuels. And so people want more fuel and they want it fast. So I might win my race last week, but the next race, I'll have the SBC supplier say, you know, my customer wants it really quickly. It'd be much, much better instead of going around the corner, I run across the grass. And I'll get to the finish line first. And these are the dangers that we're starting to see now. So does it have an impact on planes today? No. Will it have an impact in the future? Maybe, especially when we have much higher percentages. So it's something that we really do need to keep an eye on.
Yes. Many thanks, Mark, also for the visual description. I think that makes the operational pressure and also the complexities of this business very, very clear. Yes. So Denmark has very ambitious goals, flying fossil-free by 2030. The Danish industry is aviation industry is one of the most leading in the SAF field. Could you briefly describe who you are representing and what your current focus is?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for the invitation. As you mentioned, my profile probably stands a bit out. I'm not a technical guy or has several PhDs like these guys. What I do have some knowledge of how the political sector works. I'm the director of Danish Aviation, so we represent basically the vast majority of the Danish aviation sector. So we both have airports, airlines, large and small, helicopter businesses, cargo airlines, schools, air traffic management, and so on. But what I really wanted to address here today is a recognition of the efforts and the dedication of the Danish government. As you said, we have set very ambitious goals. They have set very ambitious goals. What we did some years ago, the government formed what they call climate partnerships. So it's like a public-private partnership, which is initiated by the government, but the ideas on how to boost the green transition comes from the sector. So there's one for waste management, one for water, one for energy, and also one for aviation. We've been very active in the aviation part. The concept is that we try to put together the entire value chain, not just the aviation value chains, but we also look out across sectors to see if we're going to succeed with the green transition of the aviation sector. We need more than just to be someone buying a product. We need to put together electricity producers, fuel suppliers, refineries, green organizations, and so on. And all these entities we have represented in the climate partnership, which we are in head of in Danish industry. What we did some years ago was actually to propose to the government that they should introduce a passenger tax. That might not be something that the airline industry often proposes, but we did that because we know that the green transition, particularly in the hard-to-abate sectors, requires a lot of money, a lot of capital. We didn't see it as a way forward to ask the government and the state for more money. We like to do that, but in this case we chose another approach, which was to introduce a passenger tax, allowing the airport to get the tax from the passengers, put it into a green fund, which would be managed by some of the actors in the airline industry, and then we would invest it in the most efficient way to boost the green transition of the Danish aviation sector. But as you all know, when you put something into the political machinery, there is a risk that you don't get the product that you want. And we got a product, but I think it was not the product that we wanted. I've promised not to talk so much about that, but the idea is that they introduced the tax. Half of the money they spent on green transition of the aviation sector. The other half was spent on social policies. And we just found it quite difficult to see the connection between green transition and giving our pensionists more money, which is a fine purpose, but it's not a green transition. Anyway, so what they did with these funds was that they set some ambitions for the Danish domestic aviation. We just recently had a tender on a green route. And before you attack me about my terminology, the green terminology and the green route is not my invention. That's the words of the politicians. I know it's not green. I know it's not 100% green, but that is what they call it. It's going to be flown by one of our member airlines, Norwegian, from the airport in Aalborg, northern Jutland, to Copenhagen next year. 40% SAF blend-in. And that's the start. So they were ambitious. Our prime minister were ambitious. The politicians were ambitious. But as we all know here, it was very difficult to actually realize the ambition. But now there is a route. It's 40% SAF blend-in on that particular route, on that particular plane, which is fine. So now the task is to look forward to 2030, where we have some funds that should fuel the green transition of the domestic sector. What we're asking right now is that we should try to use these funds on investing in the supply chain in Denmark and in the EU, so that we could have maybe Danish-produced synthetic fuels on Danish planes, even on European planes. We would like to see that way forward.
Thank you very much. I think that clearly shows the different pieces that come into the play, and also that were not part of the fuel supply chain before. You had also an interesting role switch, so you worked for the ministry before, now you're advising industry. I wanted to ask you, how do you see policy influencing aviation safety? What's your perspective on that?
Well, in terms of the green transition, I think the mandates that has been set by the European Commission, I think that they're necessary. They're tough, but I think they're necessary to drive the change. But I am honestly concerned that these very strict and ambitious policies and regulations could drive a demand on these fuels that we just heard come from new suppliers, new producers. That the demand can be so intense that we actually risk losing control with the fuel standards and the quality. I know there is a lot of very experienced specialists doing everything they can to prevent this with standards. But I also know that when you create a massive political pressure with very strict mandates, gigantic fines, you do drive a demand that we just need to be aware of, that could have some kind of perverse incentive some way along the road.
Thank you very much. So you saw a little bit, there are different pieces of the puzzle that give a bigger picture. And I'm very happy to have Pierluca here. You are the head of Safety Intelligence Performance at EASA. So you heard about the transition that is starting in the aviation sector. What do you see as the major challenges?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. when you hear me talking, it will be from the perspective of the safety risk management. Thanks, Maria, by the way, for the teaser and for the publicity. I was already contacted by some of you for getting more details. So you talk about challenges. Well, you already made all the statements that qualify the challenges. But from the side of the safety risk management process, what I would like to highlight is that we need to put this into a context, into something that is, well, quoting Jesper, as standardized as possible. Now we have set a precedent and we cannot avoid it. So as standardized as possible, and see this process or this issue in light of this new process. And at the end of the day, we are talking about an issue, or safety issues possibly, that are transitioning from the management of change. So they were not in operations to the operations. What does it mean? Well, it means that we don't have many data. And we need to be, as Giancarlo was saying, also predictive. We need to be able to anticipate things using different methodologies. And this is an important challenge. So quantify and qualify before taking actions. Then there is another aspect, which was touched upon many times today. And we are talking about, like for cybersecurity and safety, well, this is another case of interrelated or integrated safety risk management. Because now you have, instead of cybersecurity and safety, you have safety, logistics, sustainability, and politics. Why not? And they have all an impact, and they might have conflicting priorities. Having said that, safety will always have the bottom line, and we need to defend and protect it at all costs. Also, there is another aspect to be seen. From the side of safety risk management process, this is a very complex issue because it covers the so-called hazarding context. Because we are in operations, you are making clear examples. But not only, we are talking about contributing and systemic issues. You have new entrants, so procedures, processes, safety culture, and this is an important contributor, in particular when it is an unknown. And having said that, the challenge then stays in refraining from jumping the gun too early. We need to avoid to go straight to regulation. I see that there are already some questions in this area. Well, let's assess first the amplitude of the problem, and let's use the methodology and the weapons that we have in our remit to already start to do mitigating actions. You mentioned the SIB, which was a very immediate, I would say, reaction to confidential safety reporting. And last but not least, I committed myself to use this word as many times as I can, together. Together is the word that really makes the difference. By the way, the panelists sitting here are contributors, active contributors to the management of this safety issue, and in this room there are also many others, to say that, well, it's not just a matter of EASA to protect this SAF, as the way you want to call it, but it's a joint effort. So the challenges are those ones, and all of those require a solution.
Many thanks. You already mentioned it, so EASA is already active. You mentioned the interrelated challenges, different stakeholders. What specifically are we doing at EASA to manage this safety issue?
Yeah. So challenges require a solution. We cannot leave them unattended. So there was a massive activity which was done by collecting data in conventional or non-conventional way. So when we have occurrences, we take occurrences, but we have few. And in particular, Florian was mentioning the case that having occurrences is not enough. You need to see what are the riskiest ones. And this is really where the safety risk management process gets its consecration. But then we have also confidential safety reporting. Why not? And you see that this has triggered already an action. And we need to be able to combine those in a way not compatible in principle set of data. Or surveys. Why not? Okay, surveys is something that becomes a bit more complicated, but we need to use it. So, in a way, we have created already a safety issue, which is the one that you mentioned, so this out of spec SATF in operations, which I can already announce because we are going public with that, is already qualifying in the top 5 of our safety risk portfolio. So it gives already the sense of how important it is. But that's not enough, because apart from having a normal safety issue, we are already considering to put at large the SAF as one of our top safety topics, with the benefit of having not only a standardized approach which would lead to the so-called EPAS actions, so rulemaking, research, and safety promotion, but also to other actions, and we mentioned already the SIB, also other activities which can be even light safety promotion. And that's the beauty of it. So we are already doing a lot in this area. And we have already initiated the so-called safety issue assessment. What is the consequence of the safety issue assessment? We are taking all the inputs. We are doing our best to quantify the issue, to see the barriers, because the fuel you were mentioning is really at the very end, so there is not much left after that. So it's a quasi-single point of failure at the end. So we need to be good at making a good assessment there. And the safety issue assessment will create, or will make recommendations. We don't commit on dates at the moment, because really the data are paramount there, as also Carol was mentioning that. So after that, we go for the impact assessment. The impact assessment will also combine the recommendations, which are very much safety-oriented, into something that takes into account other factors that are political, socio-economic, and so on and so forth. So, and this is where we will formalize the heavy stuff, our actions that we intend to do as EASA to mitigate the risk from our side. One thing that I did not mention as a challenge, but I put this as one of the reasons we might overcome some challenges, is to identify the right safety performance indicators. I see there are already questions on, in fact, it's about key performance indicator, but we want really to stress out the fact that when we go for actions, we need to be able to measure the effect or the benefit of those actions. And identifying the SPIs, we have discovered it is one of the most difficult exercises that we have come across. Where for SPIs, we don't intend just the number of fatalities. We need to see what is the direct relationship between the actions that we have undertaken and the consequence. Florian, you made an example about with the Nice accident. And someone was talking about, for instance, the stop bars. Well, the two are not really talking. Stop bars and Nice accident. If I put a KPI on the stop bars, I will not have I will not have identified the right KPI. So we need to find the right one also for this. And we need to remain flexible and agile. I repeat that. It's a challenge, but also is a resource. Here I would like to quote Alan, he's not there, but we need to do not only the right things, but also the things right, but also the right thing. And last but not least, I repeat on the fact that we need to work together on that.
Yes. Many thanks. And I want to summarize a little bit and answer the second question here. You already pointed to it. So yep. Ansgar asked, what is stopping the Commission to regulate that fueling and blending companies have to ensure quality standards are met if EASA can't do so? So I think you already gave the answer. We saw it already before. The whole system is stressed. So that means the response cannot be directly to impose something on the spot as like a panic reaction. So it must be probably analyzed. So that's exactly what you described. It's challenging because we have several stakeholders, but we have the process that is ongoing. We need to understand what are the impacts. There are always other consequences that also need to be looked at. So that was to answer the second question because we had it basically already answered. I asked for a lot of questions. We have a lot of questions, but I still want to give each of you 1, 2, 3 sentences where you can summarize in your perspective looking forward. What needs to be done? What are you doing to ensure a safe transition to major use of sustainable aviation fuel? JP, do you want to?
I can. Okay. So So the initiative we took was not only regarding SAF, but when you talk about working together, for us, when you look at a fuel system, for example, you have a lot of redundancy in a fuel system, but when it comes to fuel, it's a single point of failure. So looking at the changes within our industry, we wanted to take a proactive approach on safety and together. Initially, as an OEM, we were very airplane-centric and relying a lot on the rest of the industry to deliver, the baton, the correct color and color material, as Mark was mentioning. But I'm more on the trust but verify or collaborate, actually. So what we saw we are implementing, we started 2 years ago to implement a SRM on fuel quality. And the top event is a non-conforming fuel on the airplane. And that allows us to actually expand our collaboration with the rest of the industry where we have no oversight. When you're talking to a refinery, to a pipeline, or to an airport operator, we have no oversight as an OEM. But some event happening in the past and now seeing the issue, potential issue with SAF, we decided to get more involved and collaborate because somebody yesterday said safety was funny because, when you talk about safety, people are kind of trying to pass the ball. No, you are in charge of safety. You are in charge. Mm-hmm. Well, we believe that actually we should all be involved. So we are trying to... So this SRM will give us an opportunity to be involved with the wider community, to understand the changes happening and offer our technical help. So that allows us also to provide more support to airline operator because they already have a lot of pressure on them. So anyway, that's another topic. We can spend a lot of time on that. But yes. Overall, that's our answer to working together.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's really key. Mark, what's your perspective? What are the most important points to ensure a safe transition?
In 3 sentences, yes?
Maybe 4. Yes.
Okay. Well, I think that the first thing is our industry, so my industry needs to do a better job in communicating about the standards. I think having them known by people so that they're seen as part of helping with safety and not an impediment to competition or innovations. I think that's one. 2, I think all collectively we need clarity. So all of you in the room, you came expecting to see a discussion about SAF, and then we've showed you SATF, we've showed you SBC, and all these different words that you might not understand. And so it's quite complex, and someone's new in the market, they're trying to understand, well, which regulation do I need? And it starts, unfortunately, even with the Refuel EU regulation, so that the public can understand it. There is a SAF mandate, so the public can understand that. When you read what's written in the document, it's not a SAF mandate, it's a mandate to provide a certain percentage of SBC. So this does cause confusion with new players who don't necessarily know where to go for look at the advice and what their obligations are. And I think this is just a fact of life because when you're making laws, they have to be understood by the public. So it means that sometimes you use different words to the technical people here, and it causes some frustration. So you need clarity. And the other one I would say is the clarity on our side. We talk about blending to make a sustainable aviation fuel. And blending is a really simple thing because you do it in fuel terminals all the time. And in using that word as well, we're given the impression that the creation of that fuel is in fact easy, whereas in fact it's very, very complicated. You're not blending, you're actually appointed manufacturer. So when you do the certificate, you're not saying, yes, I was able to mix it correctly, but you're retesting it again. You're certifying that it's on spec. You're certifying that all the components, including the jet fuel that was used, were correct. And you're doing a series of tests, which came up on Bastian's slides, that are only done at that point of manufacture. And they never get done again in the system. So we are, I say, guilty ourselves of using simple words for something which is in fact quite complicated. And so I think that these things have to be stressed.
Thank you very much, Mark. Mathias, do you have comments? How do you see it? What can be done? What needs to be done?
Yeah, well, I think, in my view, the one of the biggest safety-related issue in this area is a bit indirect. So we just saw that we need, what you said, 3,000 to 6,000 production plants worldwide. So what we see and have learned the past couple of years is that our friends might not be our friends tomorrow. So I think what we need to do here is we need to make sure that this aviation fuel is produced and used in Europe. I'm very happy to see last week the Transport Commissioner's plan, the Sustainable Transport Plan. Very happy to see recognition that there is a need to own the value chain and not just sourcing it from China, India, otherwhere. And so my biggest wish would be that we gave this instrument, the STIP, even more muscles, and that we did it together with the member state. For example, allowing for EASA plants in Denmark, in France, in Germany, all those places. I think we need to do that. Also, if we want to make sure that we have the synthetic fuel on the market in 2030, we need to go, and we need to go now.
Absolutely. Many thanks. Luca, you already introduced this forward-looking discussion.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Yeah, I would complement with the fact that I see that there is a lot of momentum. Where we would like really to stress one important point of attention is that we cannot fight all the time monsters, gigantic monsters. So we need to scope. We need to make sure that we are able to understand what is the scoping of the battle that we want to fight, and go for what we say actionable or manageable safety issues, which will not be perfect. And as I always say, don't let a risk manager to do risk management. Otherwise, all the risks become too big. So what we should do is to make sure that we chop the elephant in slices, and we start to process the things one by one at the pace that is requested. So we are flexible in short-term actions and a bit more heavy when we have the certainty that the mitigating actions will have a reasonable or acceptable safety net benefit in the end. And I would stress out again the fact that it's something that we can do only together. Thank you.
Thank you. So, let's continue with the slicing and take some slices of the questions that we have here. So I think the first one, JP, goes to you. With regarding continuing airworthiness, when using 100% sustainable aviation fuel, do you expect some limitations on components, life limit time? Is it a drop-in replacement?
So that's a good question. So I think we have a lot of confusion again in the industry of on the 100% SAF. So as an OEM, we are on a new airplane. We are aiming to have airplanes that are compatible with 100% SAF, whatever it means. So basically fuel agnostic. So we do evaluation, engineering evaluation on 100% FR, for example, or very challenging. But it is not good in terms of usage. We have legacy airplanes, so it is not going to be implemented anytime soon. So the solution, when we talk 100% SAF implementation, is going to be a drop-in. It has to be a drop-in because all the old airplanes we have are going to be in service for a long time. And we cannot have dual fuel at an airport for safety reasons. So it's going to be a drop-in. And no, the point of drop-in is no limitation. We don't accept any limitation. And actually, that's a part of the reason, that's one of the reasons we're a little bit worried about proliferation of standards, is because when we do the OEM do their evaluation, our mandate, internal mandate, is it has to be as good or better than what we have. So if we approve it, if it's making its way in D7566, it means that the blends are drop-in and are as good or better on JLS. So there is no worry, you can use it. There is no limitation on usage, and there is no limitation or impact on component lifetime, at least lower lifetime. So no, it will be a drop-in.
Thank you. So this also underlines the importance of collaboration between the OEMs, mostly on a global level. So that's really key. Again, we hear collaboration. We have the next question, which is saying 2 years ago, this subject was the main theme of the EASA safety conference in Seville. What was achieved since then and what challenges are yet overcome? So I was not there, I'm not fully aware, but what I can comment on is that many of the aspects that we are discussing today were emerging. That was not known 2 years ago. The mandates were not in place, the impact of the price difference, so backward looking, it looks logical, but that was not clear 2 years ago. So that's a part of the risk that we need to manage, that there are new things emerging. How do you know how new actors will act? What will they do? So we need to monitor closely to really understand what the challenges are and what is an appropriate measure to tackle them.
I can also add that we have initiated a safety issue assessment, which is the formal commitment of the agency stating that really this is in our radar, this is important to us, it's in the top 20, and we have already a candidate top safety topic. So this is really a formal engagement of the entire organization, the together organization, and this is really what has changed since 2 years ago, because at the time we did not have the new concept and also this formalized in such a way, I would say.
Thank you. I would quickly answer the second question here. So do you have a roadmap for collaboration with engine OEMs? We already answered that. There is the OEM panel. That means that's airframer, engine OEMs working closely together. So that always goes hand in hand. Otherwise, it's not possible. So this is really key to the progress that we already achieved. Okay, yeah, the next one is... we can try to answer that. So how does EASA...
Do you want me to combine it with the question on production that we had before, maybe? Sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted you. So do you want me to go?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I think it's a really good question. It's a question that everybody in the room is worried about. So there was a question that's now dropped off, which was about, will there be more bigger suppliers, and will the bigger suppliers of SAF become more professional? I think the answer is yes, and our experience is the large suppliers are becoming more professional. But there will still be a gap, and this is what is allowing in maybe people who are less ethical. Now, why will there be a gap is because the 2050 goal is absolutely important. I think the world needs it, my children need it, we all need it. But when you look at the economics, it is quite ambitious. In my past, I happened to build a plant that today would be a SAF plant. So if we were to build that plant today, it would cost $250 to $300 million. IATA thinks that we need 5,000 of those. Okay. The plant I built, a maximum production when everything went well, could maybe supply 1% of the SAF need in 2050. So it gives you an idea. It gives you an idea of the scale. You then also have a problem of, for SAF, you need hydrogen. So to meet the 2050 target of SAF, you need, I think it's something like 300 million tons of hydrogen, green hydrogen ideally, to do your SAF. The worldwide production of hydrogen today is 83 million tons. And 70% of that is delivered in bottles and trucks. So that gives you an idea of the challenge that there is on the hydrogen side. And then you've also got a cost thing. So the SAF plant I built was quite cheap because I was able to share facilities with the refinery that was next door. So when I was doing really, really well, my processing capacity was good, okay? But the refinery next door, they would reach my annual processing capacity after 4 days. So that gives you an idea of the economic challenge that there is as well. So it's a challenge, but we have to meet it because I think we're looking at the next generation. We have to meet it, but it is not, looking from my seat, it's not going to be easy. And it does need a lot of cooperation from a lot of people, and it needs the airline community as well to be really pushing behind it. It is very challenging, and we have to get it right because my children need this world.
Yes, many thanks. I think that clearly shows also the pressure that is on the system, and that's always a source of risk. We have also time pressure. The next question, I want to turn it a little bit around. So here it's SAF cuts emissions 3 to 5 times more. How do we convince airlines to adopt it at scale without just passing the cost to the passenger? So that's a little bit a political question. I would try to turn it around, because I think what is very interesting is who's really responsible here? Who's responsible for safety? How do we manage that, and how do we manage that at a global scale? Sorry again for pointing to you, JP, but you mentioned it before that it's how do you see the collaboration on a global scale? Does that happen to ensure safety? Is it easy or challenging?
Tricky question.
Yes, sorry. At the end.
No, it's not easy. It's not easy, but I think we have to be proactive, because right now, yes, it might not be a big issue as we are starting, but so what we are trying to do is be proactive and engage as many people, as many organizations as we can. For Boeing, I can speak for Boeing. We started to be involved with organizations that typically we were not welcome. But because over the year we built relationships, and so what we're trying to do now is have more formal engagement. For instance, Boeing joined EI a couple of years ago, and Airbus follows suit as well. So now you have OEMs on the EI filtration committee, which is important because they write a lot of the standards, best practices to deliver fuel from refinery to airport. So this is a type of challenging we are trying to address. And it's not only for SAF, quite frankly. It's all fuel.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, and I think also, Mathias, you pointed before already to an answer. It's not just pointing to a single stakeholder. You said what you're doing in Denmark. It's the involvement of all stakeholders together, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so just a closing comment on that. I agree that the question has it a bit upside down, in my opinion, because even the most persistent character in the world couldn't convince an airline to buy a product that at the moment is maybe 10 times, it's not on the market yet. Maybe it's going to be on the market. I'm talking about e-fuels now, and it's going to be 10 times more expensive. So that's not going to happen. So what you need to do is you need to sit down with the value chain as a regulator and to see, do we want this regulation to succeed? And then what needs to be done? Even if you convinced an airline to enter into a 5-year or 10-year off-take agreement, then you would go to that with that agreement to your investor, to the bank, and they would look at it. An airline 10 years from now, that's no good. You have no credit liability in that matter. So we need someone with bigger economic muscles to put this in motion.
Yeah, thank you for pointing out that challenge. So we have 1 minute 30. That means really we are at the end of this discussion. There are 9 questions. You can approach them, so I will stay a little bit longer after this session. I thank the speakers very much for all these valuable contributions. There are different pieces of the puzzle. I think it's a complex game. We saw SAF is safe as a technology. We see the operational challenges. We see the difficulties to get this mandates being fulfilled. We see that we have safety monitoring tools in place. We are in the process to identify the risk, which is difficult because it's in such an early stage, and we see different forces. So yeah, we hope at the next conference or in 2 years for the same question that we received here. We will continue to be active and can report then what we did in 1 or 2 years. So many thanks for the panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.